Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Opposite of Cheating podcast. This is episode number 36, and I am joined by my friend and colleague, Cath Ellis from Australia. And another, I know we've had a lot of Australian folks on because they're super smart and they're super on top of this. And in large part because of them, but also because of TEQSA, the quality assurance agency down there, has really had academic integrity front and center. So, welcome, Kath, to the opposite of cheating.
Thank you, friend. Hello, lovely to see you.
Lovely to see
I'm
you.
joining today on a beautiful sunny morning here in Bedegal country, which is the Indigenous country here on the eastern suburbs of Sydney. And it's a
Nice.
beautiful sunny day here in Bedegal. Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm at the end of my day on a Friday in beautiful, cloudy San Diego, and Cass at the beginning of her Saturday. So
Yes,
excited.
weekend.
Yeah. And so, you've listened to some episodes, so you know how
Mm.
we always start. I want you to speak for yourself and tell folks a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and the context in which you do it.
All right, I'm Professor Cath Ellis, and
And she has a
I
bigger
am the
title than that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. I am pro vice chancellor. So that basically means I'm a deputy chancellor, something like that. But anyway, I'm in the leadership team of a university called Western Sydney University. But wait for my title, Tricia. It's pro vice chancellor, quality and integrity. I have the word integrity in my job title.
So awesome.
Boys and girls, it's
Yay.
possible.
It
And
is
I think it
possible.
does mark a really good shift in Australia that this is seen as absolutely mission critical.
Mhm.
Academic, and it's really academic or educational integrity that is my world, not
Yeah.
research integrity, not commercial corporate integrity, but it's educational integrity is my world. And
Mhm.
so I think it was a really bold step of the university to decide to call this job this name. I started just under a year ago. I've just about clicked over my first year. And I also want to just shout out to Western Sydney University. Integrity is one of our institutional values.
Oh,
So there you
lovely.
go. Yeah, so
Wow.
Western Sydney University is a large publicly funded university in the greater Western Sydney. Sydney's huge geographically, and the western suburbs wrap around the edge of the city. We've got 12 campuses dotted all over the
Oh,
city.
wow.
And yeah, beautiful out there. Absolutely love working out in the west of Sydney. But we're a big, comprehensive university.
Uh,
But our main mission is to provide educational opportunity to students in that region, as well as internationally. But a lot of our students are first in family. A lot of our students are really wanting to change their lives through education. It's a really beautiful mission that we've got, and everybody really who works there really belongs to it. Yeah,
that's
it's a
lovely.
fabulous job.
Tell the folks your academic background, your route to
Mm.
pro vice chancellor. You said professor, but you didn't say of what or, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting. I don't never quite know what to say when people ask you're a professor of what?
Yeah.
Because a professor of student cheating just like a
No.
funny thing to say.
Department.
But yeah, I'm really proud of being a professor. I was promoted to professor when I was working at UNSW through the education focused route, which means that yeah, I was recognised and rewarded for that esteem through the work that I've done in this area of academic integrity. But yeah, background, I'm a literature academic, as a literature scholar, particularly Australian literature. Um, but really my route to this world was I started when I was working in the UK, I started doing stuff on assessment management. I
Mhm.
think that's when you and I probably first
Mhm.
met. I started going to those plagiarism conferences that were held
Mhm.
in Newcastle. I think you were probably a keynote speaker at one of them. I
Focus
think that's
one,
probably,
2014.
yep, that must be it. That must be when we first met, I'd
Mhm.
imagine. Um, and I was sort of around the edges of academic integrity scholarship without actually really focusing on it.
Mhm.
Um, and then my master scandal hit. It's almost 11 years ago to the
Wow.
date. And that's when I started becoming really interested in research. That coincided with my taking on more senior educational leadership roles.
Mhm.
And so that's really been my thing. It's about award integrity. It's about And I've spent a lot of time detecting cheating and finding evidence of cheating. That's been a big part of the last 10 years of my life, raising awareness about contract cheating in particular.
Mhm.
But that's allowed me to build a little bit of a profile. And that's really led me to where I am now, which is in an institutional leadership role, really driving institutional change when it comes to the quality of our curriculum, the quality and of our awards, and also the integrity of those awards. And that's now what I do, and I
Yeah.
love it.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think of Amanda McKenzie, who was on in first season, and for a while there, she had a role of managing the quality assurance office and the integrity office. And it's obviously such a natural, good pairing, but it just doesn't happen in the States. Of course, we don't have quality
Yeah.
assurance in the States, but that's a whole
Well,
other problem.
that's another thing for us to reflect on, I think, Tricia.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're on two extreme ends of a regulatory spectrum. I'd
Yeah.
say we're probably the most regulated higher education sector in the world, and
Mm,
you're probably one of the least
yeah.
regulated higher education sectors in the world. I think you've got something like 144 regulatory bodies in the US, um, something like that. We've got really the one. And it's, as you said, it's TEQSA, the Tertiary Education Quality and Standards Agency. And there you go. There's the sort of that same mix coming in.
Yeah.
But after the My Master scandal and after the advocacy work that Tracy Brethag and I did, and we were going down to TEQSA, we were going to Melbourne, and we were knocking on their door and we were saying, look, what we found.
Yeah.
And on the strength of that, they got the legislation through and they got the funding for a higher education integrity unit. So when we all talk about Texas amazing, Texas great, it's really, I mean, they are, but the thing we are engaging with is called the HEIU, the Higher Education Integrity
Right.
Unit. And it's not a part of the regulatory arm. It's
Oh.
the non-regulatory arm of TEQSA.
Oh.
So they're the white hat regulators. They're there to help.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's I guess what's
Oh,
really
that's
been
cool.
pushing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so nothing like a good scandal to create change, right? Scandal and data. Yeah.
yeah.
So, okay, so you've been doing academic integrity stuff for a while, degree integrity, educational integrity, but what's your first memory of encountering that term, that idea of academic integrity?
I think it's the idea rather than term. I've got a really
Yeah.
early one for you, Tricia. I love the way you ask this question of everyone. Um, when I was little, maybe I can't even remember how old I was, probably about 6 or 7. My family, my mum and my dad invested in an encyclopedia. Do you remember them? Kids, that's what
We
we
had
had
our
before
set.
Wikipedia,
We had
right?
our set.
So we had a World Book encyclopedia, and it was in this beautiful bookshelf, and it was
Mm-hmm.
beautifully bound. And little cats looked at this as like the world was in this bookshelf, all of this knowledge. But I remember mum and dad teaching us how to use it and that we must wash our hands beforehand
Oh.
but also that the information in there was to help us think and help us to
Mhm.
learn. It wasn't that you just read that and copied it into what you needed. You needed to take that,
Mm,
process it in your head, and then let it come out of you as something you now knew or could do
yeah.
something with. And then I remember a little later on being in the library at school and seeing another girl at school just copying directly from the
Yeah.
encyclopedia into her homework. And I remember looking at her thinking, I mean, obviously thinking, that's wrong, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but also I remember vividly thinking, what's the point? Why
What's
would you do that?
yeah.
And so to me, very, very early on, I I had this sense
Mm,
that I wouldn't have known to call it academic integrity,
no.
but I had this sense that learning, if you want to learn and you're able to learn, this is the willing and able thing that I think Kane explains about our pyramid. If you want to and you're able to, then learning should be about what you do and what you
Yeah.
have and what inheres within you.
Yeah. Well, and
Mm.
it's so true. And I've had this conversation with other folks. As humans, we love to learn, like as little kids, babies, right? We want to learn how to talk. We want to learn how to walk. It's probably with my conversation with Susan Bloom, who wrote Schoolishness. It's like school kind of stamps that out of us. School dampens our desire for learn for a lot of people. because
Didn't for me, but
me,
yeah, but I appreciate that it did for quite a lot. It does for quite a lot of people.
yeah,
But I want to, if I can play something back to you though with that. I mean, I listened to that and I thought, yeah, it's absolutely, devastating when that happens. But there are also times in our lives when all of us don't love to learn,
true. It's
you
hard.
know? There, but it's also there are things I don't want to have to learn, but I have to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think about times when I've literally done 2 full week residential training events for things where I could have got a certificate at the end, but I didn't because I didn't care about certificate. I just wanted to learn the thing. I
Yeah.
wanted the professional development inside me. But there have also been things I've had to do which were barriers to something.
Hmm.
So I've worked for 3 universities over the last
Yeah.
few years, and when you start a new job, you've got to do the 23
All the
compulsory
time.
training modules
Hmm.
on, data disclosure and conflict of
Hmm.
interest and workplace health and safety. And look, some of them aren't brilliantly designed and some of them are a bit of a chore. And there are times when I have to admit to myself, I'm not particularly learning motivated at this point. I'm credit motivated.
Yeah.
So I think we all have to recognize that some of us are more credit motivated and some of us are more learning motivated, but all of us have learning motivated and credit motivated selves that
Sure.
comes to the surface at different moments.
Yeah.
And what we have to accept is when we've got a classroom of students in front of us, some of them on that day, in that moment, will be learning motivated and some
Hmm.
of them will be credit motivated. And there's nothing you can do to stop that.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
could be that they had a rough night the night before. It could be that they just had a bad week and didn't have time to do their homework. It could be that this is the stuff they've come to university for. You just don't know.
Yeah.
But you can't control that. You can't perform something better or different to convince those students who at that moment, at that point, are credit motivated to suddenly become learning motivated. You might
Hmm.
move a couple across. So I think that's one thing that we've got to recognize is
Yeah.
that we can't try and make everybody learning motivated all the time.
Yeah. Well, I was going to have you talk about the staged approach to feedback, but now I feel like you've led me right into the IA approach that Western Sydney is taking, because it's exactly I really think that that's right. I don't want to spoil what the
Yeah.
IA stands for. So tell us, oh, so everybody, earlier episode, what it was, oh gosh, I'd have to look it up really quick. It was earlier episode 28 with Danny Liu, who talked about the two-lane approach at the University of Sydney. And Kath, I'm so excited to learn about the IA approach at Western Sydney because I think I'm gonna love it.
Yeah, let's see how we go. I hope you
Okay.
do.
Okay.
Yeah, so listeners, if you haven't listened to Danny, press pause now, go and listen to that episode. It's a cracker. As usual, Danny is amazing. But
Yep.
yeah, when I joined Western Sydney University, one of the things my DVC said to me, my boss said to me, is I want you to lead an educative solution here.
Okay.
And so me and my colleague Brian Stout, big shout out to Brian Stout, get him on your podcast. He's
Okay.
amazing. Um, with our other amazing colleague, Dr. Jen Tyndale, and some other colleagues, we sort of worked on this for months and months and months, looking at the two-lane approach. We came to the realization it's the only way forward. It is the correct answer,
Yeah.
everyone. Um, but there were a couple of things we didn't love about it. And I'd had the pleasure of watching Danny and Adam build this thing because I was working at the University of Sydney at the time that they were.
Yeah.
And it was such an honor and a pleasure to work alongside them and see them build this idea. But I know that there are a few things they were struggling to land well. And so we were able to benefit from that. And we've sort of nuanced the idea of the two-lane approach. There's a couple of things. We didn't like the name of it, calling it the
Mm.
two-lane approach. We didn't like the names of the lanes, lane one and lane two.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I found them particularly confusing because originally they were the other way around and I kept forgetting which lane
Yeah.
was which. They're arbitrary signifiers, right? We may as well have called them bananas and apples. They didn't actually
That's
respond or
right.
relate to what was in there. So we played around with it a bit. And we also were rewriting our assessment policy at the same time. Oh my God, our assessment policy this is amazing. If you look down the responsibilities for students in our current assessment
Yeah.
policy, the word learning is not mentioned at all.
Yeah.
So that's what was sort of triggering with us. It was this idea of we need to rethink all of this all at once. And so we reshaped our purpose as defined in our assessment policy. It had 159 words. We got it down to 9.
Wow. What?
If I ask everybody at the university, can you tell us what our purpose of our assessment and feedback policy is? None of them could remember it. But now they can because it's 9 words.
Wow.
It's a assessment and feedback inspires and assures student learning.
Mm, nice.
That's it.
Yep.
And so there you go. That's the answer. Why do we call it the IA approach? What does IA stand
Yeah.
for? It's not AI back to front, but it is because we can say we're flipping the script.
Yep.
But our IA approach is the inspire and assure approach to assessment and feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So lane 1 for us, we've sort of turned them upside down.
Okay.
Lane 1 for us is the inspire lane,
Yep.
and lane 2 is the assure lane.
Yep.
And we've turned them the other way around to the University of Sydney because we inspire first
Right.
and we assure second.
Yep.
And then we inspire again and then we assure again.
Yep.
And then we inspire again and then we assure again. So the inspire lane is all about assessment for and as learning.
Yep.
It's about motivating students to do the work of learning. Kane referred to that. Kane Murdoch referred to
Mm-hmm.
our concept of the work of
Yeah.
learning,
The hard work of learning, like
recognizing,
that.
yeah,
For some. Yep.
learning takes work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and learning that really matters takes hard work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about motivating our students to do the work of learning, even if they at that point in time may not feel
Mm-hmm.
like doing it,
And could
because we don't
bypass
always
it.
feel like that. Yeah, easy to bypass it because
Yeah.
there's all these shortcuts you can take.
Yeah.
So the Inspire approach is all about assessment for and as learning,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't try to secure it
Right.
because a lot of it's unsecurable.
Yep.
Um, but we know it's going to be secured later on.
Mm-hmm.
So the learning we're trying to assure at that moment will be assured, or the learning we want to assure at that moment will
Yeah.
be assured later on.
Yeah.
So then we get to the assure lane,
Mm-hmm.
which is we secure assessment for assurance of learning. We're
Right.
not securing for the sake of securing.
Right.
We're not securing because we can and because we're powerful and because we can tell students what to do.
Yeah.
We're securing for assurance.
Yep.
So the purpose of that lane, the assure lane, is assessment of learning.
Yep.
So when we think back to our purpose, assessment and feedback inspires and assures student learning. That basically is saying at Western Sydney University, assessment and feedback is both assessment for and as learning,
Yep.
and assessment of learning.
Yep.
It's the both and solution rather than the either or solution. We've got to do both.
Yes.
So that's the IA approach.
Nice. Yeah, so I mean, it's exactly what those of us that have been in the academic integrity field have been saying for a while, right? Like there is no silver bullet solution to this problem. You can't secure your way out of it, and you can't just trust your students, as a lot of people that I talk to, again in this podcast, have wanted to do. So, but I love the way that you've named it. I think that's true. Lane 1, lane 2 isn't very inspiring. But inspire and assure reminds us and our students of the importance of learning. And in our competitive higher education or competitive education system, like everybody gets, parents and students get so focused on grades and completion. And it's helpful to have that countercultural narrative to remind people, no, actually learning is why you're here. And us certifying or assuring your learning is also why you're here, right? Like you're here for both of those reasons.
Yeah, and it makes it much easier to have that conversation with the
Yeah.
students. When I did that sequenced deadline
The
approach, what I
stage
call the
approach,
padlock
yeah.
assessment, the staged approach.
Everybody, it's on page 69 to 70 of our book.
Thank you. When I did that approach, it allowed me to have that conversation with the students
Mm,
of, I'm not doing this to you because I'm mean. I'm doing this because graduate employers of somebody, like the employers who will employ somebody with this qualification, with this award from this
yeah.
institution, are going to expect you can deliver a 5-minute presentation, and receive questions and answers from their clients.
Yeah.
They're going to expect that you can do that.
Yeah.
I need to check that you can in order to warrant that
Yep.
before you go out into the
Yeah.
workplace. And they all kind of looked at me and went, oh, yeah,
It's such a
I want to
logical
be,
thing.
yeah.
But we don't
It's
we
like,
don't communicate that with our students very effectively most of the
yeah.
time.
And I think one of the other things I learned through that experience, and I'd love to talk with you a bit more about it now, but um, is that by the end of that process, I realized that of my 100 or so students, some of those students, that 10-minute conversation I had with them after their presentation
Yeah.
was the longest conversation I had had with them all semester.
Mm-hmm.
And that told me something important. I
Mm.
reflected on this and I thought the students who are going to avoid assurance of learning
Yeah.
the hardest are the ones we need to talk to the most.
Yeah.
And that's where we get back to this enrolled persons thing.
Yeah.
That the students who I had been interacting with class all year and were coming to my consultation hours and were ringing me and calling me and emailing me, and I didn't need to worry about it. They were fine. They
Yeah.
were going to be just fine. And turns out they are just fine, you know.
Yeah.
The ones that I couldn't engage, like they were avoiding me, they weren't coming to my
Mhm.
consultation hours, they were missing classes, they were the ones I needed to really buttonhole and
Yeah.
look in the eye and say, show me what you've got in your body. You
Yeah.
know, tell me what, like, it's a bit weird to put it this way, but as teachers, when we assure learning, we have to see the learning
Yeah.
coming out of
I
their
can't
body.
read your mind, so you need to share it with me. Yeah.
Exactly. You need to externalize it. So by actually sort of looking these people in the eye and saying, we need to have this 10-minute conversation,
Yeah.
that's when we're thinking about those enrolled persons because it doesn't matter how engaging you are in the classroom. It doesn't matter all the tricks and things you can do to
Yeah.
make your learning engaging, make it more likely than not that students will do the
Right.
work.
More
It's
inspiring.
the ones, yeah, the ones who aren't even
Mhm.
in the room.
Yeah.
And at the very tip of the pyramid, and this might be one we could put out to folks outside of Australia, the Nixon report. The Nixon report was a really interesting investigation into visa fraud in Australia.
Mm.
What emerged out of that was that student visas were being used by people traffickers to get people into the country.
Wow.
So at the extreme tip of our pyramid, Kane and my pyramid, there will be enrolled persons who
Yeah.
are actually enslaved in a window tinting factory
Right.
somewhere in Sydney. You don't even know they're enrolled in
Yeah.
your university. No
Yeah.
clue.
Yeah.
And so they're the ones that we need to be able to find and seek out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how engaging your assessment is for that person,
Yeah.
it's not going to work.
Yeah. And that's why I like that the labels inspire and assure. And so for folks that are listening to us that haven't read the book, maybe the enrolled person, if in the My Master scandal that Cass been talking about, is the contract cheating industry. That she has studied extensively, along with mostly by our Australian colleagues and then some in the UK, really. And it's just blown so wide open that both, well, Cath and I and Tom Lancaster make brief appearances, I've heard, because I haven't seen the film yet, in the Shadow Scholars documentary about the contract cheating industry, or at least the Kenyan part of it. So that's the enrolled person that folks that Cath's talking about is. There's a student, there's a person enrolled in your class, but they're not actually doing the ones doing any of the assessments. Somebody else they've hired is doing them. Now, of course, Cath, we don't have to use humans anymore because we've got things like Perplexity Comet, which can just complete, our if especially if everything was just Canvas or LMS based quizzes, super easy peasy, right? So this is
Yep.
this is
And
just shooting up the contract cheating industry probably even bigger because now they can do more students faster.
well, I think that's what's really interesting about the Shadow Scholars documentary, which I have had the pleasure of seeing
Yeah.
twice, and it's currently it's showing in Canada at the moment. Actually,
Yeah, but not in
it's
America
it's
yet.
Yeah. But I think that's what, it's been really interesting since the launch of ChatGPT in November 2022. I've done a lot of, press interviews and
Yeah.
media things. And the question I often get asked is this going to kill the contract cheating industry? And of course, none of us really know, but I
Yeah.
suspect it absolutely is. It won't kill it off
Potentially.
completely. Yeah. But the Shadow Scholars documentary does tell, I won't spoil it, but it does tell the story of the impact it is having on that commercial cheating supply industry.
The
But
gig the
this
gig
is,
workers, yeah.
yeah, but I'm going to jump, to the end here and say, I'm at the point of not caring. I don't care if a student outsources their work to a robot, a human, or to a human that's using a robot. It
Right.
doesn't matter because, and this is where the title of your book just nails it. The opposite of cheating is learning.
Yep.
Because if cheating occurs, you pick it up, you turn that coin over, learning hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at a different coin that says learning hasn't happened and you turn it over, cheating isn't always on the other side. There are a lot of other reasons why learning might not happen.
Yeah.
But if cheating happens, always, already, learning hasn't
Oh, I
happened.
love that. Yeah.
So there's a very strong link
Hmm.
between cheating and not learning.
Hmm.
They are causal. They
Yeah.
are not correlation, they are causal.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm advocating for looking for evidence of learning
Yeah.
rather than evidence of cheating. And really, the correct thing to say there is not looking for evidence of learning, but looking for evidence of non learning.
Yes.
So if you have a student in front of you, and this is what happened to me in that padlock task, the
Mm.
sequenced deadline task, is and I might just tell the story of it really quickly because I think it's a really
Yeah.
important story. We started with 170 students. I warned my head of school. I said that number's going to plummet, and it did. Like we'd normally expect maybe 3 to 5% of students to start and in the first week and decide, oh, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
I lost a third of the students before census date.
Because they knew
And
they
I'm
would go
thankfully,
deep.
yeah, yeah. I warned my head of school about this, and he was like, what? He was like, okay. And when it happened, he was like, and because normally if something like that would happen, he'd be sort of
Yeah.
marching into your office. And when it happened, he went, right, you told me this would happen, Cath. Yeah, it's happened. Um, and so the 100 or so students I was left with, I was reasonably confident that they were going to do the work of learning. Now, Sean Lehman, who you've also
Yep.
spoken to on the podcast at the time we were working together, he had developed a very early version of Wiru at that point. And towards the end of the semester, I was getting a little bit tired. And I said, oh, look, Sean, can you just run your eye over my remaining cohort and let me know? Because I just can't be bothered marking the work that's being done by a Kenyan. I just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
And normally when he would do that, he would say, oh, yeah, this one and this one and this one and this one. They're getting logins from Kenya. So we just go, okay. Um, but he looked over my cohort and he was like, I can't find any. Unusually clean, I think he said.
Wow.
And then I thought, and then we sort of got to thinking, and I said, well, could you run your eye over the ones that left the subject and moved to another subject?
Mm.
And they were, of course, scattered to the winds by this point.
Mhm.
He looked over those, 50% of them were cheating.
Wow.
And so
Contract
that's where
cheating.
we came up with
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
If we can get to a point where there is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, like as Danny Liu says, going through airport security,
Yeah.
there's no way through onto that plane unless you go through airport
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to have to get to. But I still had one student who turned up to the padlock assessment task at the end, and he walked in with an earpiece in his ear. And I said, take that out. And he pulled his phone out of his pocket. It was running a live translation app. That's how he was going to try and get through. He read his script. He flicked through his slides. But in the 10-minute Q&A, it became patently obvious to everybody in the room, there were three other students as well, that he hadn't done that work.
Yeah.
And when I asked him a very basic question, like this is how the Q&A worked. You start with a question at a barely passable standard, and I had them all in plain
Mm.
envelopes that they could just randomly. Couldn't answer that, you ask an easier one. Couldn't answer that, you ask an easier one. Couldn't answer that,
Wow.
until you're getting to the point of saying, tell me what's written on this PowerPoint slide. And he couldn't. And at that point, it's really obvious. And if I'd said to him, which I didn't, do you deserve to pass this subject? He would have had to have said no,
Hmm.
because anything else would have been
It's just
laughable.
so obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, I guess,
Uh,
what we're talking about when we're thinking about, that sort of idea of what it means to be an enrolled person is to get through it. At that point, I didn't care if he'd used a robot. I didn't care if he'd
yeah,
used another human. It didn't matter.
no,
I didn't have to accuse him of you used this inappropriate
right.
tool or you outsourced to another person. I didn't
Yeah,
have to.
yeah,
All I needed to say to the academic misconduct team, who at the time was, included people like Sean, was my subject matter expertise as an academic, having taught this subject is that this student did this, he did that, he was unable to answer this, you're finding a fact, you're just writing down what actually happened, occurred. I had a recording to back me up. I
yep,
had two witnesses.
yep.
Um, I just said, this happened. On my academic judgment, it is more likely than not that he
Mm,
hasn't done the work himself.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
that's what it means to assure,
yes,
you know.
and I want to really point out because whenever I talk, not whenever, lots of times when I talk about secure assessments or to use your language, assuring learning, people think TSA, they think airport security, they think surveillance, and then they don't like surveillance. And I always point out to them, well, surveillance, the definition of surveillance is a close observation and then
Mm.
comma usually of criminal activity. But if you just take that first part, that's what you were doing. You were closely observing the student's ability to demonstrate his knowledge, and he failed to be able to do that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with closely observing in education. I mean, apprenticeship, we do that, apprenticeships, that's what they were built on. And so I love that story because you've demonstrated how you can do secure assessments that not only assure learning, but you're building students for the ones who did it honestly. You're building their durable human skills. Our graduates, as you said earlier, have to be able to leave and talk about their knowledge, not just write it in a blue book, right? They have to actually talk to people and explain what they know. And so you're helping them with that too. So I just love the whole
Well,
approach.
let me flip it over to the other extreme of that cohort, which
Yeah.
was the student who came to my consultation hours and came to every class
Yeah.
and emailed me and was constantly, engaging with me, did the reading, was just, super bright. At the end of her 10-minute conversation, I sort of it was 8 minutes in, and I said, "Oh, look, we've still got 2 minutes. I'm going to have to ask you a really hard question."
Yeah.
Because it goes the other way, right? You ask the easy question they can
Yep.
answer that. So you ask a harder one and you ask a
Right.
harder one. I said, I'm going to have to ask you a really hard question. And the look of relief on her face really shocked me. And she said to me afterwards, "It's when I knew I'd done well." And it didn't matter
Um,
if I got that question wrong
yeah.
because I knew that I had got to the top levels here. And
Yep.
if I just gave that answer a good go, didn't
Yep.
matter.
Yeah.
And she said to me afterwards, I have never enjoyed an assessment moment more because I felt like you were really seeing what I'd achieved. And
Mm-hmm.
we were celebrating my
Yeah.
learning. And
Yeah.
it was really great. And she said to me, and this is what really got me the
Yeah.
waterworks. She said, actually, as we were talking in that conversation, I started to join some dots I hadn't otherwise connected in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see some things because of the way you questioned me. I could see some things. And that's when I realized that was assessment as learning, not just assessment for learning.
Ah.
And so this is where, if we come back to our IA approach, the thing that's really emerging out of that as gold, and it's teaching, like I was talking to Jen Tyndall about this just the other day. We still don't quite know how this matrix works, but it's
Mhm.
teaching us how it works every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
We've put our inspire and assure lanes on a matrix, right?
Okay.
So rather than being two lanes, Danny talks about the
Mhm.
lanes and merging and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. We don't like, or any of the traffic metaphors, don't like traffic lights, don't
Yeah.
like lanes. Um,
No one likes
so
traffic.
we don't, no. We've put ours on a matrix, right? So if we
Oh,
think
I've
about a
seen that.
horizontal line
Yeah.
where we go from more inspiring to
Mm.
or more inspiring to less inspiring.
Hmm.
That's the vertical one.
Hmm.
So the stuff at the top is really inspiring. The stuff at the bottom is less inspiring.
Hmm.
And then from left to right, really hard to secure to really easy to
Mm.
secure.
Hmm.
And okay, there's no such thing as perfect assessment security. Danny talked about that. And technically, technically you can secure everything. Like if you really wanted to secure an essay, you could hire someone to follow a student around all day, every day and watch them as they wrote their essay. But A, it would be expensive, and B, it'd be creepy, right?
That would be
So, I
surveillance.
mean,
That would be the definition of surveillance.
so yeah, technically there's these extremes, but we sort of less easy to secure and
Yeah.
easier to secure, I guess, as we go. And you put those things on a matrix and you start to realize there's this bottom left-hand quadrant where it's neither inspiring or assurable. That's where we need to focus our energies. That's what we're saying to our academic colleagues. When we say we need to start by stopping,
Mm,
because we can't add, we can't augment, we
yes.
have to replace, because we're already exhausting ourselves and we're already exhausting our students. So let's start with that bottom left-hand corner. And
Mm.
that's where Phil Newton's lovely SOUR. Have you heard about the SOUR?
Mm-hmm.
SOUR.
Yep.
It's summative, online,
Yep.
uninvigilated, remote.
Yes.
So
Right.
in our IA approach, we're looking at that and we're saying, well, what if we replace that with FIRE?
Mm.
Formative,
Mm-hmm.
inspiring.
Mm.
Um, I'm just going to, I've got to get the F and the I and the R and the E right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's formative. It's designed to inspire learning. And what does the R stand? I know the E stands for evaluative judgment.
Mm.
And yes, sorry, no, the I stands for instant feedback. Let me start again.
Yep.
Formative, instant feedback, repeatable,
Mm.
and evaluative judgment.
Mm.
That's the FIRE. So it's formative only, so we're not giving it grades. It's
Right.
something that students can choose to do or they could choose not to do. It's in their best interest to do, but they don't have
Yep.
to. No harm comes to them if they don't. Instant feedback. So the best time to do a multiple choice
Mm-hmm.
quiz is immediately after you've attained the new
Yep.
information and it's becoming your knowledge.
Testing,
So
retesting. Yep.
instant, repeatable. So, oh, I only got 4 out of 10. I'm going to give it another go
Yep.
to see if I can get to 7 out of 10. And developing evaluative judgment. So that sense of, okay, I'd like to be able to answer this 10 out of 10. I'm only getting 4 out of 10. What
Mm.
do I have to do to bridge the gap between where I'm at and where I want to
Mm.
be or where I need to be?
Yep.
So just that could be the same set of questions, the same quiz, but we change the conditions from summative, online, uninvigilated, and remote
Yep.
to formative, instant, repeatable, evaluative judgment. And
Yep.
it's moved from the bottom quadrant to the top left-hand quadrant. It's not
Nice.
securable. Don't try and secure it, but it's in the inspire
Yeah.
part now. So if we think about that matrix, what we're trying to get to is at least one thing in the securable side
Yeah.
and everything out of
Else.
that bottom. But the top
Mhm.
right-hand corner is both inspiring and assuring.
Yeah.
And that moment where that student saw that 10-minute conversation as a celebration of her
Mhm.
learning,
Yeah.
a recognition, a warranting, a reward for the work,
Yeah.
that's when I knew that task was up in that top right-hand quadrant.
That's awesome.
Now, when we put that matrix in front of our academic colleagues, there's something about it. They just get it.
Yeah.
They're able to use it to help think through the landscape of their assessment regimen in
Hmm.
their subject and have a think about what they want to do to bring about positive change for themselves
Yeah.
and their work
That's awesome.
and to their students. And this is just another interesting thing to just link this to. Another scandal that is running across the higher education sector in Australia is pay confidence. We've had some terrible scandals, my institution included, of underpaying casual staff.
Oh, yes.
And one of the things that has caused this is that we have paid different staff different amounts for doing the same work.
Mhm.
And part of that is because we are designing assessment that exceeds the amount of time that we actually pay people
Right.
who are casual. So there's all sorts of ways in which we need to connect this IA approach
Hmm.
with all of these other sort of auxiliary benefits that
Contextual.
can come out of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Oh, well, as always, Kath, you are your brain. I think it needs to be examined. You're so brilliant and you have such but you're able to take your brilliant ideas and put them in such an easy, digestible way for people to understand.
Oh, that is the
I,
nicest thing to say. Thank you.
I love that.
That
I love that even on a
fills my
Saturday
heart.
morning. But
Yeah.
we're out of time. But I have this feeling we've had a couple of repeated guests on our podcast. I have a feeling that I'll have to have you back, maybe towards the end of this our academic year, beginning of your new academic year, to talk about what's changed since you've started introducing this
Yeah.
AA approach on your campus, because I'm going to start using it in my talks.
You can have it. I'll send you some slides. In
Awesome.
fact, let's put some slides in your show notes so that other people
Yes.
can use them as well.
Perfect. Yeah.
Obviously, acknowledge us.
Well, of course,
Western
yeah.
Sydney
Right
University,
now
very
it's
proud of this
sorry,
work.
Danny.
Yeah,
It might replace my two-lane approach slide, but that's okay. I'll also credit Danny because, as you said, their
absolutely.
approach
You
layer
must. You
inspired you.
must. Yeah, Danny and Adam's thinking is absolutely at the core of ours. We've
Yeah,
just packaged it slightly differently and
love it.
just taken it one
No,
extra step.
I love it, and I think it'll really resonate with faculty here in the States too. So thank you so much, Kath. I really enjoyed that, and folks, just yeah, check out the show notes. We have lots of stuff in there.